Commander Allison Bennett stood at the observation deck of Earth Defense Fleet headquarters, watching the massive alien ship hover over New York City. 3 months had passed since the Zolaxians first appeared in Earth's orbit without warning. Their ships were enormous, sleek structures that seemed to shimmer between silver and blue depending on how the sunlight hit them. 10 minutes until they arrive, Commander, said Lieutenant Greg Powell, checking his tablet. Thank you, Greg. Allison straightened her uniform and took a deep breath. As the lead military representative for this first face-to-face meeting, she felt the weight of humanity on her shoulders. The Zolaxians had spent weeks communicating only through digital channels. Their messages were always polite but carried an unmistakable tone of superiority. Today would be different. Today they would meet in person, and the entire world would be watching. Dr. Eric Mason hurried into the observation room, his arms full of notes and translation devices. His glasses were slightly crooked, and his curly hair looked like he'd been running his hands through it all morning. Sorry I'm late, he said. The xenolinguists made some last-minute adjustments to the translation software. We think we fixed the issue with emotional context. Allison nodded. Let's hope so. Last thing we need is another diplomatic incident like the Mars orbit misunderstanding. 3 weeks earlier, a simple conversation about orbital mechanics had somehow been translated as Earth threatening to crash Mars into the Zolaxian homeworld. It had taken days to clear up the confusion. The sleek silver shuttle from the mothership landed smoothly on the rooftop landing pad. A door slid open, and 3 Zolaxians emerged. They were tall, nearly 7 feet, with thin bodies covered in what looked like translucent skin that pulsed with blue and green lights. They had 4 arms and moved with a fluid grace that made them seem almost like they were floating. Here we go, whispered Eric. The delegation walked into the meeting room where representatives from all major Earth governments waited. Cameras broadcast the historic moment to billions of people watching from home. Ambassador Vexatur, the lead Zolaxian, spoke first. His skin pulsed with patterns as the translation came through the speakers. People of Earth, we bring greetings from the Galactic Zolaxian Empire. His voice sounded almost musical through the translation system. We are pleased to finally meet face-to-face with your species. President Maria Sanchez of the United Earth Alliance stood to respond. On behalf of humanity, we welcome you to Earth. This is a historic moment for our people. The meeting proceeded with formal introductions. Each human representative said a few words while the Zolaxians listened with their head-like appendages slightly tilted. When Dr. Mason presented his credentials as Earth's lead scientist, Ambassador Vexatur's skin pulsed with a pattern that the xenolinguists later identified as amusement. Your scientific achievements are quaint, said the ambassador. We find it charming how you've managed to achieve spaceflight with such primitive tools. Dr. Mason's smile froze on his face. The room grew tense, but he maintained his composure. We are eager to learn from your advanced civilization, he said carefully. Ambassador Vexatur made a gesture with his upper arms that resembled a shrug. Of course. It is the duty of advanced species to guide developing ones. Throughout the meeting, the Zolaxians continued their thinly veiled insults, calling Earth's internet an adorable first attempt at information sharing, and referring to human medicine as impressively effective given your limited understanding of biology. During a brief recess, Allison pulled Eric aside. Are you hearing this? She whispered. They're talking to us like we're children. Eric nodded. Every sentence has some kind of condescension built into it, but we need to stay calm, the world is watching. What the Zolaxians didn't know was happening 500 feet below the meeting room. In a secure underground laboratory, engineer Kate Donovan hunched over a complex array of sensors. Her team had been secretly monitoring the energy signatures coming from the alien ship since they first arrived. Got something new? Said her assistant Sam Wells, pointing at a screen showing unusual energy spikes. Kate adjusted her equipment. They must be using some kind of quantum communication during the meeting. Record everything. Back in the meeting room, the Zolaxians proposed what they called a cultural exchange program. They wanted to establish bases on Earth to share their technology and knowledge. We can help you solve your climate crisis, said one of the other Zolaxians, whose name translated as something floating in deep water. Your attempts to address it have been well-intentioned. President Sanchez maintained her diplomatic smile. We appreciate the offer and will consider it carefully. After the meeting concluded and the aliens returned to their ship, Earth's leaders gathered in a secure room that was swept for listening devices every 15 minutes. They're hiding something, said General Alan Rivera, head of global security. Those weren't diplomats. The way they moved, how they observed everything. They're military scouts. I agree, said Allison. Did you notice how they kept asking about our defense systems and resource distribution? They framed it as concern for our well-being, but they're gathering intelligence. Dr. Mason shared his analysis. Their language contains embedded hierarchical structures. They literally cannot speak without indicating status, and in every interaction they place themselves above us. President Sanchez looked troubled. What about the bases they want to establish? Perfect for monitoring our activities, Allison said, and possibly staging points for something bigger. In her underground lab, Kate Donovan made a breakthrough. She burst into the secure meeting without waiting for clearance. Sorry to interrupt, she said, but you need to see this. She placed a tablet on the table. We've been analyzing their communications. They're using quantum entanglement. But there's a pattern we can detect, and more importantly, we can read some of it. The room fell silent as they looked at the translated message on the screen. Initial assessment of Earth, rich in resources, minimal defensive capabilities. Species shows potential, but requires guidance. Recommend standard colonization protocol, with preliminary population reduction of 40% to ensure compliance. President Sanchez looked up from the tablet, her face pale but determined. It seems our new friends aren't being entirely honest with us, she said. Let's make sure we're not being entirely honest with them either. From now on, Operation Hidden Hand is in effect. Allison nodded grimly. For years, humanity had prepared for this possibility. Secret defense initiatives, hidden technology, weapons platforms disguised as space junk, all waiting for the command to activate. The Zolaxians thought they were dealing with a simple, naive species. They had no idea what humanity was capable of when threatened, and they wouldn't know until it was too late. Colonel Frank Wright stared at the satellite images on the large screen in the underground command center. The Zolaxian outpost on Mars gleamed under the red planet's weak sunlight. In just 2 weeks, the aliens had built structures that would have taken humans years to complete. They really have no idea what we're capable of, he muttered, sipping his coffee. Next to him, Lieutenant Susan Miller nodded in agreement. Their security systems are good, but not as good as they think, she said, pulling up another screen, showing intercepted Zolaxian communications. They believe their quantum encryption is unbreakable. Frank smiled slightly. The arrogance of an advanced species. They assume that because we haven't demonstrated certain technologies, we don't have them. For decades, Earth had been preparing for extraterrestrial contact. After the mysterious signals from Proxima Centauri in 2031, world governments had secretly created the Sentinel program. While publicly, space agencies focused on exploration and scientific research, underground facilities around the world developed defensive capabilities using principles of physics that the Zolaxians apparently believed humans hadn't discovered. On the main screen, a new alert flashed. The Zolaxians had established another outpost, this time on Europa, Jupiter's ice-covered moon. More mining equipment, Susan reported. They're bringing in those massive drills they proudly described as technology beyond human comprehension. Frank zoomed in on the images. Send these to Dr. Patel at Lunar Base. Her team needs to see the drill design. At that moment, Dr. Olivia Patel was already making a breakthrough at the Lunar Research Base, hidden beneath the surface of Earth's moon. Her team had been analyzing the energy patterns of Zolaxian shields since their first appearance. It's all about their shields, she explained to General John Martinez over a secure channel. Her dark eyes sparkled with excitement as she pointed to her computer model. They're based on quantum entanglement, but there's a fundamental flaw in how they're implemented. On the screen, a simulation showed the Zolaxian shield system as a complex web of energy. When Olivia input a specific frequency pattern, the web began to unravel. If we can exploit this weakness, she continued, we could potentially disable their defensive systems. General Martinez's weathered face showed cautious hope. How soon can you develop a working prototype? With the new data from their Europa outpost, maybe 2 weeks. We need to see how their shields adapt to the different environment. Back on Earth, tensions grew as more Zolaxians arrived. They established what they called cultural exchanges in major cities around the world. In reality, these facilities looked more like colonial outposts than cultural centers. Ambassador Vexatur addressed the United Nations again, his skin pulsing with that now familiar pattern that indicated amusement or condescension. We are pleased with Earth's progress, he announced to the gathering of world leaders. Your people have been most welcoming of our guidance. Dr. Eric Mason sat in the audience carefully taking notes. After 3 weeks of dealing with the Zolaxians, he had become better at reading their bioluminescent patterns. Something about the ambassador's blue-green pulses seemed off today, more intense, almost excited. We see great potential in your species, Vexatur continued. With proper direction, humans might one day achieve spacefaring status worthy of joining our galactic community, perhaps in just a few centuries. The condescension was clear, but most world leaders maintained diplomatic smiles. They had been briefed on Operation Hidden Hand. The plan was to appear cooperative while gathering intelligence and preparing defenses. After the address, Eric met with Commander Allison Bennett in a secure room beneath the UN building. He's getting bolder with his insults, Allison said, reviewing Eric's notes. Did you notice how he referred to Earth as a developmental project they were graciously helping? Eric nodded. Something's changed. Their timeline seems to be accelerating. Pulled up recent data from Kate Donovan's team. Look at these energy readings from their ships. They're building up power reserves. Whatever they're planning, it's happening soon. Across the globe, in her underground lab, Kate Donovan worked with her team to decode more Zolaxian communications. Sam Wells rushed into her office holding a tablet. We cracked another message stream, he said breathlessly. You need to see this. Kate took the tablet and read the decoded message. Her face paled. Contact Colonel Wright immediately, she ordered. Tell him we need to accelerate Project Prometheus. The message was clear. The Zolaxians were preparing for what they called Phase 2, the beginning of resource extraction operations. Their plan involved removing large portions of Earth's oceans, redirecting rivers, and mining rare minerals, with methods that would be devastating to the environment and human populations. At the secret manufacturing facility in the Rocky Mountains, engineers worked around the clock on Project Prometheus. The quantum disruption devices they were building based on Dr. Patel's research were Earth's best hope against Zolaxian technology. Deputy Director Jeff Brown supervised the production line. Double shifts starting today, he announced to his team. Presidential order. We need 50 units ready by the end of the week. Meanwhile, in orbit, Captain Peter Harrison of the secretly built Earth vessel Defiant monitored the growing Zolaxian fleet. Unlike the public-facing International Space Station, the Defiant was a military craft disguised as space debris, one of 12 such vessels positioned strategically around Earth's orbit. They're bringing in another capital ship, he reported, to command. This one's twice the size of the others. Through special sensors developed by the Sentinel program, Harrison could see through the Zolaxian stealth fields. They have no idea we can track their movements, he added with grim satisfaction. In Washington, D.C., President Maria Sanchez met with her Security Council. The mood was tense as they reviewed the latest intelligence. The Zolaxians are planning something big, General Rivera reported. Their ships are moving into position around major population centers. How ready is Project Prometheus? The president asked. First units are deployed, Colonel Wright answered. Dr. Donovan reports that the quantum disruption field has been successfully tested on a small scale. President Sanchez nodded. And the lunar base? Dr. Patel has confirmed that their shield vulnerability is consistent across all Zolaxian vessels, General Martinez said. The weakness is built into the fundamental design of their technology. President Sanchez looked at each person in the room. It seems our visitors have underestimated us. They believe we're still playing catch-up with their technology when, in reality, we're finding ways to turn it against them. She stood up, her decision made. Proceed with Phase 1 of Operation Hidden Hand. I want all defensive systems ready. The Zolaxians think they're dealing with a primitive species that will roll over and accept their guidance. Let's make sure they understand exactly how wrong they are. As the meeting ended, news came in that Ambassador Vex Tour had requested another global address. According to sources, he would be announcing the next stage of Zolaxian involvement on Earth. The trap was set. Now they just needed the Zolaxians to spring it. The Great Hall of the United Nations fell silent as Ambassador Vex Tour took the podium. His skin pulsed with bright patterns that the Earth scientists now recognized as a sign of excitement or anticipation. Behind him stood 4 other Zolaxians, taller and more imposing than any seen before on Earth. People of Earth, the ambassador began, his translated voice echoing through the chamber. Today marks an important step in your planet's development. After careful study, we have determined that your resources require Zolaxian protection. Murmurs spread through the assembly as screens displayed maps of Earth with certain areas highlighted in red. Your oceans, atmosphere, and biological diversity are too precious to be left under human stewardship, Vex Tour continued. Effective. Immediately these areas will come under Zolaxian management. The Secretary General of the UN stood up. Ambassador, this is completely unacceptable. Earth belongs to humanity. We have not agreed to any transfer of authority over our resources. Vex Tour's skin flashed with those now familiar pulses that indicated amusement or condescension. We expected this emotional response. It only confirms our assessment that your species requires guidance. The chamber erupted in outrage. Representatives from countries around the world shouted objections. The ambassador simply waited for the noise to die down, his posture suggesting he found the reaction childish. You misunderstand, he said finally. This is not a request. This is a notification of what will happen. For your own good. Dr. Eric Mason watched from his seat, keeping his face carefully neutral even as he sent a coded message on his tablet. Ultimatum delivered. Initiate Protocol Delta. After the chaotic UN session ended, Earth's leaders met in emergency session at a secure underground facility in Switzerland. President Maria Sanchez looked grim as she addressed the Security Council that now included representatives from all major nations. The situation has escalated exactly as we anticipated, she said. Our intelligence confirms that the Zolaxians have prepared orbital weapons platforms. They're planning to enforce their protection, whether we agree or not. The large screen showed satellite images of the Zolaxian fleet repositioning around Earth. New structures that looked like massive cannons had appeared on their largest ships. How much time do we have? Asked the Prime Minister of India. Colonel Frank Wright pulled up the latest data. Based on their energy signatures, they're powering up for some kind of demonstration, probably within the next 48 hours. And our defenses? Asked the Chinese president. General Rivera nodded to Dr. Kate Donovan, who had been brought in from her lab for this meeting. She looked tired but determined, her eyes bright with purpose. Project Prometheus is ready, she said. We've built and deployed quantum disruption devices near all major Zolaxian ships and bases. If they attempt to use their weapons, we can activate the disruptors remotely. She displayed a small device on the table, about the size of a cell phone. This is what will save Earth. It looks simple, but it contains technology that can turn the Zolaxians' own energy systems against them. How confident are you that it will work? President Sanchez asked. Kate met her gaze steadily. The science is solid. Dr. Patel's team on the lunar base confirmed the vulnerability in their shields. We've successfully tested it against samples of their technology that we acquired. No one asked how Earth had acquired pieces of Zolaxian technology. Some things were better left unspoken. In orbit, Captain Peter Harrison of the Earth vessel Defiant monitored the growing Zolaxian fleet. His ship, disguised as a defunct satellite, had perfect positioning to observe their movements. They're bringing in something big, he reported to command. Much larger than anything we've seen before. The massive ship that appeared from hyperspace dwarfed all previous Zolaxian vessels. It positioned itself directly over the Atlantic Ocean, its shadow visible from space. Scans indicate it's some kind of processing ship, Harrison continued, designed to extract and transport large volumes of water based on its configuration. Back on Earth, people watched the skies with growing fear. Despite government efforts to maintain calm, panic was spreading. The Zolaxian ships were now visible in daylight, their massive forms hanging over major cities around the world. Ambassador Vex's tour requested a special broadcast where he would address all of humanity. As television stations worldwide prepared to carry his message, Earth's defense forces quietly moved to their positions. In her laboratory, Kate Donovan made final adjustments to the main control system for Project Prometheus. If they fire on Earth, she said to her team, this will be our only chance. Sam Wells looked at the quantum device they had created by reverse engineering Zolaxian technology. Do you think they know what we've done? Kate shook her head. They're too confident. They believe we couldn't possibly understand their technology, let alone use it against them. The broadcast began worldwide. The Zolaxian High Commander appeared on screens everywhere, his massive form making Ambassador Vex's tour look small beside him. The High Commander's skin pulsed with complex patterns that suggested authority and power. People of Earth, the translation came through. I am High Commander Zorketh of the Galactic Zolaxian Empire. I have come to oversee the next phase of Earth's integration into our protection zone. President Sanchez watched from the Situation Room, surrounded by military and scientific advisors. Get ready, she said quietly. We have observed your species for centuries, the High Commander continued. Your wars, your pollution, your primitive understanding of physics. It is quite remarkable you've survived this long without proper oversight. As he spoke, smaller Zolaxian ships took position over major cities around the world. It was a clear show of force. Your nuclear weapons, which you consider so fearsome, would not even scratch our vessel's paint, the High Commander continued with what sounded like a chuckle. Your most advanced AI would be considered a simple calculator by our children. Colonel, Wright whispered to President Sanchez, classic intimidation tactics. They want us to surrender without a fight. On the lunar base, Dr. Olivia Patel and her team watched the broadcast while monitoring the energy signatures from the Zolaxian fleet. They're powering up something big, she reported to Earth Command. The flagship is generating more energy than we've ever seen from them. President Sanchez nodded to General Martinez. Initiate Operation Sunburst, all forces on standby. Around the world, hidden defense systems came online. In orbit, the disguised Earth fleet prepared for action. On the moon, Dr. Patel's team activated their specialized equipment. Lieutenant Ryan Cooper at the Lunar Defense Station input the final authorization codes. They really shouldn't have underestimated us, he murmured, as he confirmed the system was ready. On screens worldwide, the Zolaxian High Commander delivered his ultimatum. You have 12 Earth hours to acknowledge our authority and begin evacuation of the designated resource extraction zones. After that time, we will demonstrate why resistance would be unwise. The broadcast ended, leaving the world holding its breath. In the Situation Room, President Sanchez looked at each person present, then spoke with quiet determination. Send our response. President Maria Sanchez stood before the camera, her face calm despite the weight of the moment. The entire world watched as she prepared to deliver Earth's response to the Zolaxian ultimatum. People of Earth, and to our Zolaxian visitors, she began. For months we have welcomed the Zolaxians to our planet in peace. We have shared our culture, opened our cities, and engaged in good faith diplomacy. The camera feed was broadcast globally and also transmitted directly to the Zolaxian fleet. In orbit, High Commander Zorketh watched with mild interest, his skin pulsing with patterns that his subordinates recognized as boredom. However, President Sanchez continued, we cannot and will not surrender Earth's sovereignty or our natural resources. Humanity has been the caretaker of this planet for thousands of years. It is our home, and we will defend it." She paused, her gaze steady and determined. "Therefore, humanity respectfully but firmly declines your offer of protection. Earth's resources remain under human control." In the Zolaxian command ship, the High Commander's skin flashed with bright patterns of amusement. "How predictably emotional," he said to his officers. "Prepare the demonstration. Target the uninhabited area in the Pacific as planned." The Zolaxian response came quickly. A video transmission showed the High Commander, his massive form dominating the screen. "Your defiance is noted but meaningless," he said. "To demonstrate the futility of resistance, we will now perform a small demonstration of our power." Screens worldwide showed a Zolaxian vessel positioning itself over a remote area of the Pacific Ocean. A beam of intense blue light shot down from the ship into the water. The ocean began to churn, and then, incredibly, a column of water rose into the air, pulled upward into the vessel. "We can extract your oceans with ease," the High Commander's voice explained. "This small demonstration has removed merely 10 billion gallons of water. Imagine what we could do to your cities." In the underground command center, Colonel Frank Wright watched the demonstration with the Earth leadership. "They're being careful to avoid casualties," he noted. "Classic psychological warfare. They want to scare us into submission." Dr. Eric Mason studied the energy readings from the extraction beam. "They're using more power than necessary for the display. They're showing off." "Are we ready?" President Sanchez asked. General Rivera nodded. "All Prometheus units are in position. Lunar Base confirms they can disrupt the Zolaxian shields on your command." The President turned to Dr. Kate Donovan. "Once we do this, there's no going back. Are you certain it will work?" Kate looked at the data flowing across her tablet. "The science is sound. Their shields have a fundamental flaw in the quantum matrix. When we activate the disruptors, it will create a cascade effect, turning their own energy against them." President Sanchez took a deep breath. "Then we proceed as planned." She turned back to the camera to address the Zolaxians. "High Commander, we have seen your demonstration. Now we ask that you remove your ships from Earth orbit and respect our sovereignty. This is your only warning." The High Commander's response was immediate and predictably condescending. His skin pulsed with bright patterns as he laughed. "Warning? You warn us? With what? Your primitive missiles cannot even reach our ships before being destroyed. Your most powerful weapons would be absorbed by our shields like raindrops." As he spoke, Zolaxian ships moved into attack positions above major cities worldwide. Their weapon systems glowed with building energy. "To ensure your cooperation, we will now disable your military installations. Do not fear. We are precise. Civilian casualties will be minimal." In orbit, Captain Peter Harrison of the Earth vessel Defiant received his orders. "All ships deploy Prometheus devices on my mark," he said to the captains of the other hidden Earth vessels. The small, satellite-like objects had been positioned near key Zolaxian ships over the past weeks, disguised as space debris. Now they would serve their true purpose. On the lunar base, Dr. Olivia Patel monitored the final preparations. "Quantum disruptors are aligned and ready," she reported, waiting for the signal from Earth Command. What the Zolaxians didn't realize was that Dr. Eric Mason and his team had been analyzing their technology for months, finding critical weaknesses in their seemingly impenetrable systems. And while the High Commander mocked Earth's defenses, Operation Sunburst was quietly being activated. "They really shouldn't have underestimated us," murmured Lieutenant Ryan Cooper as he input the final authorization codes at the Lunar Defense Station. The High Commander gave the order to his fleet. "Begin the military neutralization procedure. Target their defense installations first." As Zolaxian weapons powered up, President Sanchez nodded to General Rivera. "Now." The general pressed a red button on his console. "All units execute Sunburst. Authorization code Phoenix Rising." Across Earth orbit, the small Prometheus devices activated simultaneously. They emitted no visible light or energy, but on Zolaxian ships, alarms began to sound. "High Commander," called out a Zolaxian officer, his skin patterns showing distress. Our shields are experiencing fluctuations. Impossible, the High Commander said dismissively. Continue with the operation. But throughout the fleet, the problem spread rapidly. The quantum disruptors had triggered a cascading failure in the Zalaxian shield matrix, exactly as Dr. Donovan had predicted. On the main Zalaxian vessel, control panels flashed with warning signals. Energy systems destabilizing, reported another officer. Shields failing! For the first time, the High Commander's skin showed patterns of concern. How is this possible? Their technology cannot affect our systems. In the command center on Earth, Kate Donovan watched the data with intense focus. It's working, she said. Their shields are collapsing across the fleet. From the lunar base, Dr. Patel reported, Phase 1 complete. Their defensive systems are compromised, moving to Phase 2. The second stage of Operation Sunburst began. From hidden positions around Earth and throughout the solar system, advanced weapon platforms revealed themselves. These were the fruits of the Secret Sentinel program, technology that Earth had developed in preparation for this very day. Target their weapon systems only, President Sanchez ordered. Let's show some restraint. The Earth Defense Forces fired precisely targeted energy pulses at the now vulnerable Zolaxian ships. Without their shields, the alien vessels took heavy damage. The High Commander watched in disbelief as his supposedly invincible fleet began to falter. How? He demanded. How is this possible? On his view screen appeared the face of President Sanchez. High Commander, your ships are now disabled. Your weapon systems are offline. We are prepared to continue this demonstration if necessary. However, we would prefer to return to diplomatic solutions. The High Commander's skin pulsed, with rapid patterns of confusion and anger. This technology, you couldn't possibly have developed this on your own. You made a critical error, High Commander, President Sanchez replied calmly. You assumed that because we hadn't demonstrated certain technologies, we didn't possess them. Humanity has been preparing for this possibility for decades. We simply chose not to reveal our full capabilities until necessary. For the first time since their arrival, the Zolaxians seemed genuinely surprised. The mockery was gone from the High Commander's voice when he spoke again. It seems we have underestimated your species. High Commander Zorkeith's skin pulsed with rapid patterns that showed confusion and anger. His massive flagship hung in Earth orbit, weapons disabled, shields failing. Around him, his officers worked frantically to restore systems. This is impossible, he said. Their technology is primitive. They cannot have developed quantum disruption capabilities. His second-in-command approached cautiously. High Commander, we have reports of similar failures across the entire fleet. All ships are experiencing the same shield collapse. On Earth, in the underground command center, President Maria Sanchez watched the tactical display with her military and scientific advisors. The screen showed the status of every Zolaxian ship in orbit, all marked with flashing red indicators. Phase 1 complete, General Rivera reported. Their defensive systems are disabled fleet-wide. Colonel Frank Wright nodded in satisfaction. Decades of preparation for this very moment. The Sentinel program worked exactly as designed. Let's not celebrate yet, President Sanchez cautioned. Dr. Donovan, what's the status of their offensive capabilities? Kate Donovan studied the data flowing across her screens. Their weapons systems are still online, but they're hesitating. They know they're vulnerable without shields. The communications officer turned to the president. Ma'am, the High Commander is requesting to speak with you. The large screen switched to show the High Commander's face. His skin patterns were now more controlled, but still showed signs of stress. President Sanchez, he began, his voice lacking its earlier mockery. It seems there has been a misunderstanding between our peoples. No misunderstanding, High Commander, President Sanchez replied firmly. We intercepted your communications. We know your intentions were to colonize Earth and exploit our resources, with or without our consent. The High Commander's skin flashed briefly with surprise. You decoded our secure transmissions? That should not be possible with your level of technology. Dr. Eric Mason stepped forward beside the president. Perhaps you should reconsider your assessment of our capabilities, High Commander. For several moments, the Zalaxian leader was silent, his skin pulsing with complex patterns as he considered his options. Finally, he spoke again. I propose a ceasefire while we discuss new terms. Clearly, we have misjudged your species. President Sanchez looked to her advisors, who nodded in agreement. We accept your proposal for a ceasefire, with one condition. Your ships must move to a higher orbit, at least 100,000 kilometers from Earth. The High Commander's skin darkened. You are in no position to make demands. One command from me and my fleet will open fire on your cities, shields or no shields. Colonel Wright leaned close to the president's ear. He's bluffing. He knows we can disable his weapons before they fire. President Sanchez nodded slightly, then turned back to the screen. High Commander, we both know the current situation. Your shields are down. Your ships are vulnerable. We have weapons locked on every vessel in your fleet. She paused, letting her words sink in. But we prefer peace to conflict. Move your ships to the higher orbit, and we can begin good faith negotiations as equals. In orbit, Captain Peter Harrison of the Earth vessel Defiant watched the Zalaxian flagship closely. They're powering up something, he reported to command. Not weapons. Looks like their main energy core. On the lunar base, Dr. Olivia Patel saw the same readings. Energy spike detected. They're attempting to restart their shield systems with a power surge. The High Commander's image disappeared from the screens as communications were cut. In the Zalaxian flagship, he turned to his weapons officer. Initiate core surge protocol, he ordered. Bypass the affected shield modulators and restore defensive systems. Then target their major military installations. His officers rushed to comply, but alarm signals immediately blared throughout the ship. Core surge, creating feedback in the quantum matrix, reported an officer, his skin flashing with panic. The disruptor devices are amplifying the energy rather than being overwhelmed by it. Kate Donovan saw the readings and immediately understood what was happening. They're trying to overpower our disruptors with a massive energy surge, she explained, rapidly. But this is making it worse. Worse how? President Sanchez asked. The quantum disruptors don't just disable their shields. They redirect the energy back into their own systems. The more power they pump in, the stronger the feedback loop becomes. On the tactical display, the icon representing the Zalaxian flagship began to flash urgently. They need to shut down their power core immediately, Kate said. Otherwise, a brilliant flash of light filled the screens as the Zalaxian flagship erupted in a massive explosion. The blast sent shockwaves through space, damaging nearby alien vessels. My God, whispered President Sanchez. Captain Harrison reported from orbit, his voice tense. Flagship destroyed. Secondary explosions occurring across their fleet. The quantum cascade is spreading from ship to ship through their communication network. Colonel Wright turned to Kate. Can we stop it? She shook her head, eyes wide. The cascade is self-sustaining now. Their systems are all connected. Each explosion feeds energy into the network, triggering more failures. President Sanchez stood up. Send an emergency broadcast to all Zalaxian vessels. Tell them to completely shut down all power systems immediately. It's their only chance. The message went out, but for many ships it was already too late. Across Earth orbit, Zalaxian vessels began to explode one after another, their own energy. Cores turned against them by the quantum cascade. Some of the smaller ships managed to power down in time, saving themselves from destruction. Others launched escape pods before their ships were consumed by explosions. From the lunar base, Dr. Patel watched in horror. This wasn't supposed to happen, she said. The disruptors were designed to disable, not destroy. They pushed their systems too hard, Kate replied over the communication link. The energy had to go somewhere. Within 30 minutes, the battle, if it could be called that, was over. Of the once mighty Zalaxian fleet, only a handful of powered-down vessels and scattered escape pods remained. 3 days later in Geneva, President Sanchez met with the surviving Zalaxian officers. Ambassador Vexitour was among them. His skin, now pulsing with subdued patterns. On behalf of the remaining Zolaxian forces, I formally surrender to Earth authority, the ambassador said. His once condescending tone was gone. President Sanchez nodded. We accept your surrender. Despite everything, we have no desire for further bloodshed. We seriously misjudged your species, Vex's tour admitted. Our assessment was catastrophically wrong. Dr. Eric Mason, who was present at the meeting, asked the question that had been on everyone's mind. Why did you underestimate us so badly? Surely your scans showed our technological capabilities. The ambassador's skin pulsed slowly. We saw what we expected to see. Our historical records showed humans as a primitive species. We believed your visible technology represented your highest achievements. In the weeks that followed, humanity began the process of rebuilding and recovery. The debris from the destroyed Zolaxian fleet was carefully collected for study. The surviving aliens were treated humanely, many eventually becoming advisors on extraterrestrial affairs. Ambassador Vexitour, granted asylum on Earth, would later write in his memoirs, "Our greatest error was not in our technology but in our arrogance. We saw humans' kindness as weakness, their caution as fear, and their resourcefulness as mere luck. We mocked Earth right before everything exploded. The Galaxy will not make that mistake again." 1 year after the failed invasion, at the newly established Earth Defense Headquarters, Commander Allison Bennett stood with Dr. Kate Donovan, looking at the memorial wall honoring those lost in what became known as the First Contact War. "Dewey, you think they'll come back?" Kate asked. "Other aliens, I mean." Allison looked up at the stars, now being explored by ships built with adapted Zolaxian technology. "Almost certainly, but next time, they won't be laughing when they arrive."